He stepped on the tail of an alien beauty, not knowing that he now had to marry her. The markets of Kara Station were a chaos of voices, smells, and colors. Traders from 100 worlds shouted over one another, hawking spices that shimmered in the air, weapons that purred with latent energy, and fabrics so fine they could pass through a ring of fire without burning. Jonas Hale, human spacer and part-time mechanic, threaded his way through the crowd with his usual luck. Bad. He wasn't watching where he was going when his boot came down hard on something soft, alive, and, judging by the hiss that followed, very, very important. The sound made everyone nearby freeze. Jonas turned. His stomach dropped. Behind him stood a towering alien woman, her body sleek and graceful, her skin patterned like flowing silver, her eyes burning molten gold. But what caught his attention was a long, serpentine tail curling protectively around her legs, the tail he had just stepped on. She winced, her lips pulling back to reveal sharp but elegant fangs. "You," she said, her voice a velvet growl. "You stepped on my tail." The crowd went silent. Merchants stopped mid-sail, guards stiffened, and whispers spread like fire. Jonas raised his hands quickly. Hey, I didn't mean... Her eyes narrowed. Intent does not matter. You touched the sacred tail of a Xari noblewoman. That means... She leaned closer, her breath warm against his ear. "You are now bound to me by marriage." Jonas blinked. "What?" The market erupted in a storm of laughter and gasps. Some shouted congratulations. Others jeered at the fool human who had sealed his fate. Jonas gaped. "Marriage? From stepping on your... Look, it was an accident. Back on Earth, we just say sorry and move on." She straightened to her full height, easily 7 feet of commanding beauty and muscle. Her tail flicked sharply, her tone iron. On Earth, perhaps, but here, among the Xari, the tail is sacred. Only kin or mate may touch it. You are neither, so now you must become the latter. Jonas rubbed his face. He'd been in bad situations before. Pirates, broken engines, unpaid docking fees. But this one was new. "What's your name?" he asked, voice resigned. "Vera Tsari, daughter of the High Matriarch, General of the Flame Guard." Jonas groaned. Of course, she wasn't just anyone. He hadn't stepped on a regular alien's tail. He'd stepped on royalty. By the next day, the entire station knew. Holos plastered across walls showed the humble human mate of Vera Tsari. Commentators speculated if it was political, romantic, or a cruel joke. Jonas found himself dragged to a Xari ceremonial hall, where priests with painted scales prepared binding rites. Vera stood tall beside him, armored in crimson and gold, every inch the warrior princess. "Do we really have to do this?" Jonas whispered. "Yes," she said simply. "My people watch. To refuse would shame me, and shame demands blood." Jonas blinked. "My blood, I'm guessing?" Her lips curved slightly, a cruel but amused smirk. "You learn quickly." The ceremony began. Incense curled through the air, drums thundered, and the priest chanted in the deep, guttural tongue of the Xari. Jonas struggled to keep his face neutral, as attendants painted strange runes on his arms. When the final chant ended, the priest raised his staff. "The bond is sealed. From this day forth, Vera Tsari and Jonas Hale are one." The crowd roared approval. Jonas leaned closer to his new wife. "So, we're really married?" Her golden eyes studied him. "In the eyes of my people, yes. But do not flatter yourself. Human, you are a duty, not a desire." Jonas muttered under his breath. Best honeymoon ever. Life with Vera was complicated. On one hand, being bound to a Xari general gave Jonas protection. Raiders who once looked at him like prey now avoided him. Merchants who once scammed him now offered discounts. On the other hand, it also meant constant danger. Vera was always in battles, negotiations, or military trials, and as her mate, he was expected to be by her side. The first time he tried to bow out, her tail coiled around his waist and yanked him forward. "You will stand beside me," she growled, "even if you stumble." Jonas sighed. "You know, where I'm from, newlyweds usually go on vacations, not war councils." She arched a brow. "Where you're from, newlyweds are weak." But over time, things shifted. Jonas began to see the woman beneath the armor, the way her tail flicked nervously when she thought no one was watching, the quiet pride she took in her warriors, the weight she carried as both daughter and general. And Vera began to see something in him, too. Despite his fragility compared to her kind, he didn't flinch from her world. He repaired broken mechs with clever hands, advised with strategies that surprised even seasoned commanders, and stood beside her in public without fear. When other nobles mocked him as a fragile mate, he didn't argue. He simply smiled, and then beat them at their own games of logic, tech, or sheer stubbornness. One night, after a council meeting, she studied him in silence. "You are not like other males," she admitted. Jonas smirked. "I'll take that as a compliment." The turning point came during the siege of Karath. The Flame Guard were ambushed, their lines breaking under enemy fire. Vera was pinned, her warriors faltering. Jonas, unarmed, sprinted into the fray. He climbed atop a wrecked transport, jury-rigged its plasma core, and detonated in a blinding blast that turned the tide. When the smoke cleared, Vera stood victorious, her enemies crushed. She turned to Jonas, her tail wrapping protectively around him. "You are reckless," she hissed. "You could have died." Jonas grinned, blood on his lip. "Guess marriage makes me crazy." For the first time, she laughed, a deep, rich sound that startled even herself. Weeks later, in the quiet of her quarters, Vera approached him. "When this began," she said softly, "I called you duty, but you have fought beside me, bled beside me. You have carried shame and turned it into strength. That is not duty. That is bond." Jonas blinked. "Wait, are you saying—" She silenced him with a touch of her clawed hand against his lips. Her tail curled gently around his wrist, not in command this time, but in something almost tender. "Yes, human. You stepped on my tail by accident, but perhaps fate knew better than we did." Jonas smiled. "Guess I put my foot in the right place after all." And so, across Kara Station beyond, the story spread. The human who stepped on a warrior's sacred tail, and in doing so, found not only a wife, but a place in a world that had never meant to accept him. The bond that began as accident grew into alliance, and perhaps something deeper.